That's my van empty. I've got a little bit of dirty alley, some clean alley, a wee bucket, I'll show you that later. That's about 800 kilos of scrap, and I've got one good boiler. Back at my workshop, I've got 2 boilers to drop off. This is some scrap that I've picked up on the way here. And this is my little bucket that I had. It's mainly motors and cable, the odd little bit of copper. This is what I'm going to do while I'm at my workshop. You may have seen this bin full of these. These are gas valves. It's basically a little block of aluminium, but with steel on the bottom, steel on the top, and a little electric motor type thing. What I want to know is if it's worth cleaning them, or should I just sell them as they are for dirty aluminium. I'm going to get a bucket and clean 10 kilos of them and time how long it takes me and try and figure out if it's worth it or not. 10 kilos exactly. That is worth £3. Start. So the problem with these is that there is so many slight variations with slight different screws and fittings. And that's what makes them time consuming. That's the little clean block of alley. Right, let's try and be quick. Not sure if the impact gun might be slightly quicker. So far these ones have all been the same. I must have done a lot of these boilers recently. I did try and pick out a bit of a variation, but I seem to have a lot of similar ones. So you can see how much longer it takes when you start getting random ones. I'm beginning to think that this can't possibly be worthwhile. And so far I've only had 2 different types. If I had 10 different types, which is possible, I would be even more frustrated. 10.5 minutes. That seems long. Let's see how many kilos of aluminum we get. 4.2. That is now worth £4.20. What else I can get from this stuff is these are, they have little copper coils in them, so I could probably get electric motors for them. But as you can see, some of them are still stuck, so there is more time again. Let me throw these in a little bucket quickly. I might be pushing my luck, try to get an electric motor for that. I'll show you the copper that's in them though. Can you see it in there? At one time I considered breaking these open to get the copper out of them, but they fly everywhere. Maybe I could squash them in the press. I don't know if I could do it quick enough though. They're very hard. Let me try and squash it in the press, just to satisfy my curiosity. There is a decent amount of copper in them. Unfortunately, not every bit of copper is worth your time trying to remove it. So anyway, I could probably get electric motors for them. That was my point. So let's see what they weigh as electric motors. And I'll throw that in the broken pieces. Three kilos of electric motors that is £1.50. So in 10 minutes you can make an extra £2.70. Is that right? So I think that was probably best case scenario because so many of them were so similar. Let me show you some that are not so similar. One like that. Again, it has different sized torque bits, so you'd be changing the bit in the gun. There's another unusual one. Some star screws. Aye, so there is a lot of variations. So those however many that I just done, that 10 kilos that I just done, that was probably almost best case scenario. At £2.70 you would be making £16.20 an hour. So there is money in it, but you're never going to get rich. You're never going to get rich by processing them. So, which is sort of what I've thought. That's why I've just kept them and never done anything with them. But I'm at the stage now where I'm running out of space, so I had to make the decision on whether I start stripping them or I just sell them as they are. And I think I'm just going to sell them as they are. So I'd said that unfortunately sometimes copper is not worth the effort that it takes to remove it. The one that I showed you, this one, these ones might be, they're quite a nuisance, but they might be. But there's also these ones. There's more steps involved in getting the copper out of these because they're inside this steel case. You have to pop this little spring off and pop them out. And then you get a double one. And it's the same again, it's a very hard plastic. If you sit it on the table and hit it with a hammer, it flies everywhere. So, if they were all this type, then you maybe could again increase the value of them by removing the copper from these ones. But it isn't all these ones. A lot of it's these ones, which again has a lot of steel around it. Or these ones, the double ones. So I'm still going to just sell them as they are. I'm pretty sure I'm going to sell them as they are. There is money in them. You could probably, if you were doing this as a hobby or you were doing it at home in your shed in your spare time, you could earn money by doing this. But for me, I'm trying to run a business. I've got rent to pay in this place. There's just not enough money in them, unfortunately. I was curious what the little bundle of copper weighed. 86 grams. 86. I would like to try and clear this shelf, so I'm going to start stripping this ballast. It's not large ballast. And some of it, I'm sure I've done some of this before and I found that some of it wasn't worthwhile doing. Perhaps these small ones, they may have been just slightly too time consuming for the amount of copper that was in them. These ones are probably pretty good though. A lot of these are all slightly different as well. It's better if you can find some that are the exact same, then you can get into a little rhythm of stripping them. But you can see the slightly different ones will all be put together slightly differently. awkward. See those ones, the bottom section comes out. I'll try and show you the opposite. This one, the bottom comes out. This one, the bottom stays in. It's the bottom that is passing through the copper, whereas with this one, it's the top that passes through the copper. Not sure if that makes sense or not. Right. Can you see the difference? So that's the bottom, which would fit in there, but instead the bottom passes through the copper. On this one, the top passes through the copper. These ones are probably easier. I'm wondering what the difference is in the weight and the copper between those ones and those ones. Small one is 116 grams. The big one is 178 grams. So it's like a third more. Which is exactly how it looks. I went back and looked at how long I had been filming my last clip for since I started these, and to give you an example in comparison to cleaning those gas valves, this is the copper that I've removed from them so far, and it weighs 3.6 kilos, and I was filming for 24 minutes. So at today's copper prices, this is £26 in 24 minutes. So you're probably looking, stripping these, you're probably looking at £55 an hour, which you're never going to become a millionaire, but that's decent. For me, that's decent. Let me show you a few different variations of these, right? These ones are pretty similar, they're just different lengths. They might separate from the top or the bottom, so there could be that variation. These ones, I'm probably not going to bother stripping. These ones, just purely because they're so small. For me, it's going to take me almost the same amount of time to separate that one as what it will to separate that one, but that one only gives me a fraction of the copper, so these ones are too small. I'm probably going to draw the line. I'm going to call that one too small, and I'm going to strip these ones. That's where I'm going to draw the line. These ones I'm just going to put in with my electric motors and sell them as they are. Let me show you these ones. These ones, rather than having just a steel plate on the bottom that you take off, the steel case is wrapped around them and spot welded down here. They're a little bit more difficult to get the steel off of, but once you've got that off, they almost fall apart. I'll show you. Falling apart already. That's that. That's me finished. This stuff is pretty messy. I don't have time to properly tidy up right now. I need to go and pick up a copper tank. What I had been doing is just putting several buckets around about the bench so that I can sweep the stuff off with my hand, and the majority of it lands in the buckets. And I've got a few more buckets of that stuff up there. I'll show you what copper I got. I'll show you what it weighs and what it's worth. 16.8 kilos. We'll call it 15 kilos. That is £110, and it doesn't take too long to get them done. I'm going to pick a copper tank up and then go home. I'll show you the copper tank maybe when I get to the job. So apparently it's just a wee small tank, and the plumber has said that if I take the rubbish I can have it for free. So that's what I took. These radiator boxes, this towel rail box, a boiler box, I've got some cuttings of pipe and a wee copper tank. I'm quite happy to take packaging if I'm getting a copper tank, certainly. These boxes they're more of a nuisance than anything. If it was just cardboard boxes it would be fine, but it's all the bits and pieces that's inside them. It's all styrene. But anyway, I'm going home now.